Dragon's Dogma 2 has taken over my life over the last few weeks, and while I can praise the gameplay all day, the game suffers from a very confusing story. Taken at face value, the story feels overly complicated at best, and totally broken at worst. The story being told can be unclear, but after completing my first playthrough, I decided to go back and try to make sense of the mess that is Dragon's Dogma 2. I think this video will satisfy a lot of viewers who already have started Dragon's Dogma 2, or have beaten it but missed out on small plot points that were unclear as the story went on. A lot of what I discuss in this video is simply my own take. Dragon's Dogma 2 is a game that gives the player a ton of freedom, so your playthrough is going to be different than mine. Dragon's Dogma 2 begins with a cutscene showing a faceless Arisen, presumably us, the player, being recognized as the new sovereign or ruler of Vermund, the main city of Dragon's Dogma 2. There's speculation as to if this scene is a dream or actually happened, but I think it is in fact reality and is part of the story, just not the first part. Though this cutscene is the first thing we see, it's not the first event that kicked off Dragon's Dogma 2. That's a cutscene that we're going to check out in just a second. In the beginning cutscene, we're being recognized as the new sovereign of Vermund by a character named Brant. Brant is the former captain of the Queen Regent. He has been demoted and is no longer the captain for the Queen. There's a particular focus on an empty chair, and I think this chair belongs to the Pathfinder, who's a character who's going to come into play shortly. Time becomes frozen, and a voice speaks to the Arisen. I think this is the voice of our Arisen's dragon because a true Arisen is always connected to their dragon. Our dragon friend talks about willpower, we collapse, presumably poisoned or made ill by something, and I think the dragon senses something is up and talks to you to let you know. The dragon sees this as a good thing because he's trying to test your willpower, and dragons love testing their Arisen's will. Since your will hasn't been tested yet, the dragon didn't think you were ready to be ruler. This is clear by the lack of the Pathfinder, meaning you got to the throne, but you took the wrong path. The Arisen collapses, and we then wake up in a dig site and are told to start helping our pawn friends. At this point, it isn't clear on how we got to the dig site or why we were brought there. After I completed the main quest in a full playthrough, I think I can help piece this puzzle together. The true beginning of the game is the flashback your player experiences when you get to Melve. This is also one of the more confusing parts of the game. During this flashback, your character is a regular average Joe soldier here to fight the dragon and stumbles upon Ulrika and saves her from the dragon. The dragon that's attacking Melve speaks to the player and attaches himself to the player by promptly burning you to a crisp and eating your heart. The player is then shown still breathing, even though they are heartless. A display of tremendous willpower. Ulrika tends to your burnt body, nurses you, and when people from the capital come rolling through looking for the Arisen, she gives you up and thinks nothing of it since it's an honor in her culture. Or she knows more than we think.
Stay with me.
You are healed in the capital and given a small ceremony. This is the cutscene that starts the game. The group of soldiers that went to Melve to retrieve that so-called Arisen brought the body to Brant, the former captain, who knows the true Arisen is finally here, meaning a fake Arisen is currently in power. Obviously this would shake things up in the capital, so a small ceremony is held for the true Arisen, while a plan is made by Brant to help persuade the people of Vermund that we, the player, are the true Arisen. Things immediately don't go as planned as the Sovereign collapses and the screen fades to black. While out cold, we're taken to the dig site via the Phantom Ox Cart. We learn during the main story of Dragon's Dogma 2 that the Phantom Ox Cart is tied to Queen Disa, her son Sven, and the false Arisen who is currently in power. The poison or whatever made us collapse muddled our memory, and whatever was used against us, potentially a god sway that is being used by the false Arisen to control pawns, made it almost like we were hypnotized into thinking we were a pawn. Rook, the pawn we come across at the dig site, sees something in us which is then reinforced by the Pathfinder, meaning we have found our path back to the becoming ruler. But why? Why was our time cut short? During the main questline for Dragons Dogma 2, we learn that Queen Disa has an entire plan in place to get her son, Sven, to be the ruler of Vermund. Her plan includes a false arisen, so Disa might have something to do with our trip to the dig site, as the true arisen arriving throws a wrench in her plan to get her family in power. While at the dig site, the Medusa attacks. We fight it and are aided by the Pathfinder again and ride a griffin to Border Watch Town, about a month after the first dragon fight with no memories. You are found by a guard who questions you are arisen because there's already an arisen in power and there can only be one. In Border Watch Town, it's recommended we go to Melv because a dragon recently destroyed Melv, and if we are actually an arisen, we might know something about the dragon. So we head to Melv. Once the player gets to Melv, you experience a flashback. This flashback is the true beginning of Dragons Dogma 2. It seems that the game continues after the flashback, but your body is actually sent to the capital, where it is healed, and then poisoned after the flashback, and then to the dig site where we fight Medusa, and then to the Border Watch Town where we relearn of the dragon's appearance, and then to Melv. When the flashback ends, you actually come back to reality and we learn that you just passed out in Melv, and Ulrika found you again, mentioning this is the second time, and you continue the story from there. We discover our ability to hire pawns, and word begins to spread that the true arisen is out and seems to be making their way back to the capital city to regroup with Brant. In part 2, we're going to continue to cover the journey back to Vermund, as the Arisen and Brant plan to help to persuade the people that there's a false Arisen in power. Let me know what you think about part 1 in the comments below.